Today we're talking about a product that's not particularly exciting to talk about, but is a fantastic piece of gear to have in your kit, and that's V Mount batteries. So if you're relatively new to photography or videography, camera rigging or lighting and audio, all that kind of stuff, and trying to figure out exactly how to put together a lot of this equipment, you've probably come across V Mount batteries before. And traditionally they were huge, right? They were these big old batteries. They cost a few $100s and they would power all of your equipment for quite a long time compared to the batteries that you would typically put inside a camera or something like that. So where they're used most frequently nowadays is for things like camera rigs or for lighting. Those are the two main areas that I see them used the most. For camera rigs, we like putting them on the back. It adds some counterbalance to your camera rig, so whenever you're carrying it by the top handle, it balances out the whole rig. Or for lighting, it's just nice to have if you're on the go, if you're traveling, if you're in a run and gun situation and you don't have an outlet to plug into. Just put a battery on there and it'll power your lighting for a little while. Now, like I said, traditionally they were really large batteries, right? They took up a lot of space, and they were also very, very expensive. So I remember the first one that I ever bought, which was this one, I think cost me like $200 and something back in the day, and this was the cheapest one that I could find. Nowadays, they have decreased in size a lot. So the second one that I picked up was actually this one by FX Line. It's a lot smaller than you can see on this one. Pretty substantial size drop. And now one of the most popular batteries that you can get is this one. This is the TV battery. So again, looking at this one, it decreases in size. And this is great because it takes up a lot less room in your camera bag. Obviously trying to fit this in your camera bag compared to this is easier, and it holds the same amount of charge and has a couple of extra little features like a USB port, and this one has 2 D-tap ports instead of the one that was on my older one. If you don't know what a D-tap port is, it's a little port that looks kind of like this. I don't know if you can see that there, but that's a D-tap port, and they're used frequently to power things, right? So it's basically another voltage output that you can use to connect things like dummy batteries that will go straight into your camera. You can use them to transition to a DC port for lighting, or I mean, it does a lot. D-tap or P-tap, as they're sometimes called, ports are fantastic. A V Mount battery is called V Mount because on the back it's got a little mounting system that is in the shape of a V, and that enables it to just click in to a V Mount plate or an attachment with these electronic connectors on the bottom. So for example, a lot of times you end up using something like this. This is a fantastic little V Mount plate by Nitze, which gives you more outputs. So it's got some electric connections, and what happens is you just connect the battery to the plate and it all attaches like that. And now we can use the D-tap ports, the DC port, or a USB-C port on this plate to run everything to all of our cables. And if we want to change the battery, we don't have to disconnect everything from the battery. We just take the battery off the plate, replace it with a different one, and all of our connections stay connected, which is great. But recently I got sent a new battery by AndyCine, and it's on this rig right now. So this is the AndyCine. It's a mini V Mount battery, and it's a 95S, or it's a 95 watt hour battery. It's nice and small. It's about the same size as the TV one. It's basically the same dimensions except just a little bit deeper. So you'll see that it's just a little thicker there, but not by very much. So it's small, it's easy to use, and I think this is probably my new favorite battery because it's got some features that are just genius. One thing obviously is that it has loads of outputs on the battery itself. It's got 2 D-tap ports which are under these little flaps, and it has a USB-A, USB-C, and a DC port. So in theory, you don't even need one of these. You don't need the V Mount plate, which typically people use to add a lot more connections to their battery, but this one has 5 outputs that you can use all of them at the same time, all straight off of the battery. And it's got a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom, or like on the back there, so in theory, you don't even need a plate. You can just attach this straight to a cage or straight to whatever you want, and power everything that you need from one battery, which is kind of genius. Now, another thing about this battery that is really clever, you'll notice on this NPF plate by Nitze, on the side here on that DC port, it says 8 volt. So that means that this DC port sends out 8 volts at 3 amps. This battery itself has a DC port, but one of the really clever things about this battery is that it's currently set to 7.4 volts on the meter, but if you are wanting to power something that is higher than that, you can double press the DC button and it'll change it to 9 volts, or press it again and it'll change it to 12 volts, which is fantastic. So what that means is that you can basically power any device and not have to worry about making sure that your DC cable has a converter to the right thing. You can just use a generic DC cable and make sure on the screen that you're sending the right amount of output to that device. Some cameras require higher voltage to be able to run some accessories, like maybe like wireless video transmitters, they maybe want less voltage, so you're able to control all of that straight from the battery. Another nice thing about this battery is, this is more common, this is on a lot of things, but it's got a nice big meter on the side here, which shows you your battery life, and the screen itself gives you a percentage of battery life left on it. So obviously these are not the only batteries in the world, and there are many different ones you can choose from. One of my favorites that I got sent recently was by FJD, and it's this one. It's super rugged, it's solid, it feels like a brick. It's fantastic. I feel like I could throw this off a building and it would work just fine afterwards. It's also pretty small. It's thinner than the other two options that I've shown, but just a little taller. Now the only difference with this one is it's basically got one D-tap port and a USB-C port. Now it charges over USB-C, which again is great. One of my complaints with V Mount batteries traditionally has actually been the chargers, right? So you've typically needed either like a full block that you can just sort of click them onto and charge them, which cost a lot of money for those, or you can pick up like a little P-tap charger, and look, it's just got a D-tap port on the end, and you would plug that in, plug it into the wall, charges the battery. But it's just another cable that you have to carry around. It's kind of proprietary in a sense. It only works for these. So it's a little bit annoying to have to use these. I just want all of my camera equipment to be charged off USB-C. That's why I picked up one of these. It's a USB-A to 4 USB-C cables, and this stays in my camera bag, and then I can charge almost all of my stuff with this one cable. I can charge the camera, I can charge batteries, I can charge whatever I really need to, the Rode Wireless Go's, whatever. And it just, for me, it frustrates me if I have to carry loads of different cables to power different things. So USB to me is the way to go. So for me, I use this one all the time actually here in the studio with a V Mount plate, because it's really handy, right? So I can just stick it on the V Mount plate and I've got all my outputs. But this combined costs close to $300 because you're buying a battery and a plate and the plate's like $100 to be able to do all of that stuff. But the amazing thing about this battery, I think it's like $140. I'll put it up on the screen here. The exact price, and hopefully you'll find a discount here every so often. But the amazing thing about this is it does everything that this can do with the plate and the battery. It does all of those things for a lot less money, and it's also one less part, which is great. Now I still love these batteries, right? Having multiple V Mount batteries is great. I think I've got about 6 or 7 V Mount batteries altogether, because it's just really handy to have in your camera kit. And this sounds weird, I love the way this one looks. I just think it's clean, and I know that that's silly. I know we don't need to care about what our batteries look like, but I like the way that it looks, and especially like on a rig, I think it just looks kind of nice. It's clean, it's square, it's got a cool design, and it's very rugged, so that works well. But again, if I don't want to have to deal with V Mount plates, and I just want to be able to screw something onto the end of a C-stand and then run all the cables out of it, this thing is fantastic. Now you might be asking, why do you need one of these? And the answer is you don't need one, right? I mean, it's not a need thing. If you're a run and gun, you have a camera and a lens, and that's all you have, and that's all you need for a lot of your work. You probably don't need a V Mount battery. But I would say that they come incredibly handy far more frequently than I ever expected. It's one of those things that I never really wanted to purchase because of the expense, but once I did, I bought a lot more. Kind of like C-stands, right? Currently I'm using 4 C-stands to run all of this. I've got microphones, lights, all that kind of stuff, and C-stands are fantastic, but they're not very exciting to purchase. I think this is one of those things. This is not something that is fun to buy, but actually comes in handy all the time. And if you're working in productions and you start to work on music videos or with sort of larger crews, inevitably something is going to die, something bad is going to happen, and usually around electricity. And it is always good to be able to turn to a director and just pull one of these out of your camera bag and offer it to them, because chances are they're going to need one. So it always just looks good to have these sorts of things on hand just in case you need them. Or if you're traveling, if you travel a lot and you need to power a lot of your equipment, you don't need to go out and buy a big power bank, because this acts as a power bank for all of your stuff. But it's a little bit more versatile. You can use it on a camera rig, you can use it on lighting, you can use it on audio gear. But also if you need to charge a lot of stuff, you can actually take something like, again, this multi-USB-C cable, plug it into here, hit USB, and all of a sudden there's power going to all of these outputs, and that's just great. Now if you're a beginner and you're just getting started and you don't have the funds to be able to buy something like a V Mount battery, there is a budget alternative, and that is these. These are NPF batteries. They're great little batteries, they're pretty useful, and they're very, very cheap. This is the 770, which is probably my top recommendation of size. There are multiple other sizes. There's the 550, which is very small. Capacity wise, it really doesn't hold a huge amount, but they're useful. Or there's the big ones, which are the 970s, and they take up quite a lot of space in your bag. I really love these 770s. They're perfect in the middle kind of spot. Now these batteries on their own don't do a whole lot, right? There's no ports, there's no accessories connected to them. But with something like this, which is a $25 plate by Ulanzi, you can take this battery, plug it in here, and now you have a battery that can run a D-tap port, a USB-A and a USB-C port, all from one battery, which is just fantastic, for a whole lot less money than maybe a V mount. So if you're wanting to get started, if you're wanting to build up your equipment and you need more power going to things, NPF batteries are a great place to start on a budget, but I would highly recommend down the line, look at V mount batteries. They are so useful to have. I know it's not very exciting, but they're great. And it's really cool to see that so many companies are coming out and innovating new styles of things like this. Again, it really wasn't very long ago that we were looking at big giant batteries like this, that basically this one has one DTAP port, and it's huge and it's bulky, and it cost me twice what this one costs. So, you know, the size difference is great, the utility of this one is great, and the price is great. So we live in a pretty exciting time that a lot of camera gear is becoming more affordable. So that's about all I have. I recognize that talking about V mount batteries is not very exciting, but it's one of those pieces of kit that can go in your gear or into your camera bag that actually make a much bigger difference to your workflow, and they're really, really handy to use. So if you're interested in any of the ones that I've talked about, whether it's the versatility of the AndyCine one, or the sort of looks and ruggedness of the FJ Dynamics one, check in the description down below. I've got some links down there. They are affiliate links on Amazon. That just helps out the channel a little bit at no extra cost to you. I really appreciate that. And if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about things like V mount batteries. Is it a complete waste of money, or do you love them? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to know what you think. And maybe even hit the subscribe button as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope you have a wonderful day.